Hey guys, it's Vandiazzo back at it again with another Future Card Buddy Fight video. This time it's on my Dragon Road Dra-Ultimate deck, customized just like the last few ones. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and join the Patreon. So let's get started. As I said, it's my Dragon Road Dra-Ultimate deck profile. It's still the same buddy, Gargantua Dragon Tempest mode. I'm actually choosing to call this Ace Dra-Ultimate, but I do not have DD Gargantua Dragon. Just be aware of that. Otherwise, this wouldn't be here right now. Anyways, my buddy, just in case you can't read it because of the shiny foiling, 10k power, 5k defense, critical of 2, call cost, put a card from your drop zone to a soul and pay 2 gauge, but this is a Gievo deck. You're not going to call this thing by normal call unless your hand is that sucky. When this card enters the field by Gievo, for this turn this card gets +1 crit, then if you've attacked 3 or more times this turn, it gets another +1 crit, penetrate with triple attack and soul guard. So, it sucks because this is the one Gargantua Dragon that is not on place do something besides having to be restricted by Gievo, but I guess that's fine, I guess. I'm not exactly sure, but it has to be placed on Gievo to do both skills, so, yeah. Size 1s. We have no size 0s, once so fucking ever, because size 0s are crap. 4 copies of Boothdale Gardra. 4k power, 1k defense, critical of 2. Counteract, choose a Dragon monster on your field, and you may put this card into your drop zone and pay a gauge. If you do, stand the chosen card. Now, that's useful because it can keep attacking multiple times and do more crap. My problem with this is that I was deciding on the size 1 I should pick between Garbird and this thing. This thing does not have a call cost unlike Garbird, and this deck does actually have a gauge problem, but this thing does cost a gauge for its skill, so I was like, I mean, I guess this is actually worth it since the only thing Garbird's going to help me with is the matchup against Dragon Blood Sect and really Madness Loons, I think, so that's not going to help me at all, so fuck it, more attacks. Size 2, since I was only size 1. 2 copies of Land's Guard Dragon. 6k power, 1k defense, critical of 1. If you can't read it, because I'm having a hard time reading this, put a card from your drop zone to its soul and pay a gauge. If you have a Dragon monster on your field, this card's size becomes 1. Then, if you have all Dragons on your field get penetrate, and they cannot be rested by your opponent's card effects, and this has triple attack and soul guard. So, this on its own fulfills the cost of one of my spells and one of my impacts due to the triple attack thing. And it gives Dragons more abilities as penetrate, and they cannot be rested by my opponent's card effects. So, that fucks them over pretty neatly. 3 copies of Gargantua Dragon Return Mode. 6k power, 6k defense, critical of 2. Pay 2 gauge and put the top card of your deck into its soul. When it enters the field, you mill 3, put up to 1 DD Dragon Tribe monster from among them to your hand. Then, if it entered by Gievo, you add another one of those cards to your hand. But that one can be anything. It can be a spell, monster, item, whatever you want it to be, or impact. It also has move and soul guard. So this is my defensive Garga. I've been thinking about switching it out for a Sonic mode once I get Sonic mode. And it is useful. It helps search the deck. And, of course, one of them has to be a monster, but that could set up for next turn too. Or, because of my item, I could end up getting a nice Gievo off that, because of my item. And you probably know what that is now, but whatever. 3 copies of Daybreak Roar Gargantua Dragon. 6k power, 6k defense, critical of 2. You may use cards with all effects like DD, like all Gargas can. Pay 1 gauge and put the top card deck into its soul. When this card attacks, if you have another DD Dragon Trap on your field, set spell, item, another monster, whatever. When it attacks, if you have another one, you draw one. Then Gievo, if you guys don't know what that is Gievo is where you place one at the end of the battle of a card with Gievo, whether it's attacked or is attacked. You place 1 Dragon from your hand on top of it without paying its call cost. This also has a move and soul guard. It's the defensive Garga. 4 copies of Gargantua Dragon. 7k power, 4k defense, critical of 2. You may the original Gargantua Dragon. If you don't know what this does, you may use this card with all flags. Pay a gauge to put the top card deck into soul to call it, and Gievo is where it originated from. It has double attack and soul guard, so it's like the offensive Garga with Gievo. And then finally, for our last monsters, 4 copies of my buddy. You all know what he does, so I'm not going to even take time to explain to you what he does. Non-tour spells. 2 copies of Gar Run-Up. Choose one of the following 2. Either charge 2 gauge, or put a DD Dragon Tribe monster from your drop zone into your hand and you gain 1 life. You can only use the card once per turn. But, that's useful. I can either get monsters back from my drop zone to use this turn, or I can gain 2 and gain a life, or I can gain 2 gauge, which fulfills the cost of a lot of things in this deck. You'd be surprised how far 2 gauge can go in this deck. You will be surprised. If you actually built this deck the way I built it, You'll be surprised of how far 2 gauge can actually go in this deck. 2 copies of Fighting Emperor Dragon Shield. You may only cast this card during attacking the opponent's turn, and if you have a DD Dragon type on your field. Counter, nullify the attack, and if you have a Dragon on your field, charge 2 gauge and gain 2 life. Literally the only monster in this, there's only 2 cards in this deck that aren't Dragons that can actually be placed on the field. Well, 3 cards actually, and otherwise you're gonna have this card fulfilled, and you're most likely gonna have a Dragon. If you don't have a Dragon, then you have literally the shittiest luck I've ever seen. 2 copies, and one of the things I was talking about that Landsguard Dragon fulfills on its own. Garsagan. If you guys don't remember, this is my favorite spell, and the thing I like to go, countercast G-Evo, Garsagan! If you don't remember what it does, you can only activate it if you've attacked 3 or more times during this turn. Link attacks only count as 1 if you don't know. Counter. Gain 2 life, and then you draw 2 cards. You can only cast Garsagan once per turn. That can help me gain life, and it can help me draw into either G-Evo targets or shields, so it's useful for both options. 4 copies of my Null Garscold. I think that's how you say it. You may only cast a card during the attack on the opponent's turn if you have no monsters on your center and you have a DD Dragon trap on your field. Set spell, item, monster, whatever. Counter, nullify the attack and then put the 1 DD Dragon trap monster from your drop into your hand. That's useful. You could add a Garga, you could add Boothel, pretty much all you can add since it's restricted to monsters. Next up, 4 copies of the my set spell that's also really good in this deck, Evolution Spirit. So you may, I just want to highlight the art. It's actually really neat. You know, Yuga, Garga together for once. Yeah. So set, all DD Dragon Tribe monsters, all DD Dragon Tribes, including this and your item, cannot be returned to your opponent. Cannot be returned to your hand by opponent's card effects. AKA the only way this thing's leaving is by being destroyed. Same with everything else until this thing leaves. And then when a monster on your field enters by G-Evo, put the top card deck into your gauge and you gain 2 life. This ability only activates once per turn, but since it does not say you can only have 1 set, you can set all 4 of these, so when something enters by G-Evo, you charge 4 gauge and gain 8 life. I've never been in that situation, but I've been able to activate 2 at once, which is useful. Like I said, you'd be surprised how far 2 gauge goes. And this replenishes gauge. If you have 2, you can get enough gauge for the impact really quickly. 4 copies of Garperi. You may only cast this card during attacking the opponent's turn, and if you have a DD Drag Chop on your field. What's even better, you can have a center. AKA, basically, you could have a Garga in the center or something like that, or item or set spell, basically whatever. Nullify the attack and draw 1. Easily nice card. You can +1, and you could possibly draw into a shield with that, or a useful card for next turn. 4 copies of what I wish was an impact. This is a mini impact right here. Combat Deity Arises. You may only cast a card during your final phase, and if you have a drag on your field. Pay 2 gauge. Counter, stand all DD Drag Trap on your field, then all cards on your field can attack during the final phase. Now, you can only use once per turn. Now, if I'm correct, that does not mean you can go G-Evo during your final phase, and then that card can attack. I'm pretty sure it's just the cards currently on your field. But I'm not so exactly sure on that. But that is useful. It means if your opponent's somehow still alive, if you have the 2 gauge for it, you can restand your cards and then ram them again, which is really helpful. Okay, now onto our item. You've probably been wondering, what the hell have I been talking about this whole time with the item? Guess what? Here it is. Combat Deity Dragon Fang Sword. Garga Saber. Jesus Christ, that's a weird fucking name. 6k power, 2 crit. I almost had 2 defense. What the fuck is wrong with me? Pay gauge to equip it. You think it costs a life, like, by the way it's looked? Because looking at every Dragon World sword, all swords that have curved edges or messed up edges normally cost a life, but whatever. Counteract, G-Evo, choose a Drag God monster from your hand and pay a gauge. If you do, call 1 Drag God monster from your hand on top of it without paying its call cost. Then you may place this card to the soul of that card. You can only use this effect once per turn. That's useful. That means you can go attack with Garga, attack, a double attack, G-Evo into Daybreak, attack, draw 1, G-Evo into return mode, top 3, 2 to hand, 1 to drop, I guess. Attack with that, attack with my item, skill of my item, G-Evo return mode into a Garga that I got from that extra draw, attack, and then double attack, then G-Evo into Tempest mode, attack more, you get the point, it's just fucking overpowered as shit. And I can do it whenever, I can do it on my opponent's turn. So say they were attacking me and I had return mode in my center or a Garga in my center, I could go, pay a gauge, use my items effect, and then G-Evo, so the attack not only whiffed, but I get another soul. And then I gain more gauge in life, so yeah. Useful. Then we have 3 copies of this impact that Land's Guard Dragon can abuse on its own. Garga Blade Blast. You may only cast this card during attacking the opponent. You may only cast this card if your opponents have 5 life or less, and your cards have attacked 3 or more times during this turn, and you have a drag on your field. Pay 2 gauge. Deal 5 damage to your opponent. This damage cannot be reduced, but this card can be nullified. I can't read today. This is useful, because Lance can do it on his own. As long as you have a drag on in the field, the rest of the restrictions are null and void, basically. And then my last impact, even though I ran at 1, I should have done first compared to numbers, I don't give a fuck. 1 copy of Shin Gargantua Punisher, or TD Gargantua Punisher, however you want to call it. It even says right here, in the small text area, I win. Fuck Destiny. So anyways, you may only cast card if your opponent's at 5 life or less, neither you or your opponent has a center, and you have a drag on your field. Pay 2 gauge. Deal 5 damage to your opponent. This card cannot be nullified and the damage cannot be reduced. The only way they're going to get around this thing is if they have a revival card or a vanity cell that prevents you from taking the damage in the first place. So, that was the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please actually comment on this one, because this is a deck that I extremely enjoy with my living soul, and there would be no point in me living without this deck. And, by the way, unlike last time, Gardius is no longer the Holy Sword Excalibur. This is the Holy Sword Excalibur. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and go to the Patreon. And I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to raise your flag. Can you pull a buddy rare card?